My problem is that they were called at all for a nothing.
Miguel Rodriguez talking about what happened to him and his 2-year-old daughter Scarlett on the evening of April 27th. He'd walked the 2 miles from his home to the Santee Vons with Scarlett in her stroller, but as they were leaving, he discovered that Scarlett had somehow punctured her diaper. She needed to be changed immediately.
I just came over here to where I think there would be less people.
But one person saw Rodriguez changing Scarlett and decided it was worth a call to 911. We requested audio of that 911 call as well as the body camera footage from one of the deputies who showed up. Those requests were denied, but the department did supply a partially redacted transcript of the call. It reveals the caller's concerns. Male was changing juveniles' diapers on sidewalk. RP, reporting party, was concerned for their welfare, and this, Rodriguez looked transient.
This is a really good example of why every call doesn't need a law enforcement officer as a first responder or a responder at all.
Genevieve Jones-Wright is the executive director of Community Advocates for Just and Moral Governance. She says we as a society need to reimagine the role of law enforcement. But when it comes to this particular incident, she says there are problems, apart from the fact law enforcement was called at all. After Scarlett's accident, Rodriguez called his wife to come pick them up. He was just finishing securing Scarlett in her car seat when the first of 2 deputies arrived. That deputy questioned Rodriguez about whether he'd ever been arrested and whether he had a record, and Rodriguez says those questions were asked more than once.
You had inquired whether he was changing a baby. He said yes. The fact that they continued to question this father is completely inappropriate.
Jones-Wright says the deputy's actions come close to violating the Fourth Amendment, which protects people against unreasonable searches. But San Diego Sheriff Bill Gore says we should all try to put ourselves in the position of the person who called 911.
They saw something that looked suspicious.
Gore says calls like this place law enforcement in a difficult position, but he says not responding to the call was not an option.
What if the child had not been okay? What if the child had been abducted by somebody and it wasn't their kid? Then what would the second guessing been there?
Putting aside the appropriateness of repeatedly questioning Rodriguez whether he'd ever been arrested or had a record, Gore says the deputy was polite throughout the course of the encounter.
I think Mr. Rodriguez was treated like hopefully any member of the community, whatever part of this county it was in, would be treated.
But Rodriguez says he's all but certain law enforcement would not have been called if he didn't have brown skin.
I've changed countless diapers on children in public settings because the parent, you got to do what you got to do to take care of your kid wherever you are.
From his position as chair of the County Board of Supervisors, Nathan Fletcher has worked toward what he sees as making society more equitable, and that includes policing. He says what happened to Miguel Rodriguez would never have happened to someone who looks like him, but if it did,
I don't know that I'd be in a similar situation where my record would be run and I'd be asked multiple times if I have a criminal record. And I think that is at the heart of what we're trying to transform and change when we talk about being a better society and a more colorblind society.
Sheriff Gore says the bottom line for him is that the deputy handled the situation appropriately. He says the controversy surrounding the incident amounts to making a mountain out of a molehill. But it seems clear that for people of color, what are mountains and what are molehills are a matter of perspective and life experience. John Carroll, KPBS News.